Like, I kind of hated this, but the number I'm giving it is based solely on like the production values and Lady Gaga's singing. Forget your troubles. Come on, get happy with us here at Breakfast All Day. Christy and Alonso with your spoiler-free review of Le Joker. Joker, Folie, Deux. This will be non-spoiler. I really want to do a whole separate spoiler talk because there's a lot to get into here, not just in, the events of what happened in this film, but just sort of the larger themes, like what Todd Phillips intends. It could be a lot of things. There's a lot to talk about. So make sure you come hang out with us. Please subscribe if you have not. We love getting into it with you guys on movies like this. So come and hang out with us. Alonso, what is the Joker sequel about?
I believe Arthur Fleck to be some kind of martyr. Well, he's not.
So years have passed. It's now 1983, I believe, is what we're told briefly. And Arthur Fleck is institutionalized. He is in Arkham, awaiting trial. And DA Harvey Dent is going to push for the death penalty. He's not having any of this not guilty by reason of insanity business. So he wants to execute the Joker for the crimes he committed in the first film. And when we see Arthur, he is very medicated and very chill for the most part. And then one day he, on his way to a meeting with his psychiatrist or lawyer or both.
She's a lawyer, yeah.
She's a lawyer, but then they also meet with a psychiatrist. He hears a music class happening, and one of the people singing is a young lady played by Lady Gaga who catches his eye and he hers. And before you know it, he and Lee start getting really close, and she is clearly enamored of Joker and of his exploits. She talks about watching the TV movie based on his life 20 times, and as their love story unfolds, it does so musically. This is a musical, and there's a bit of a wobbly line between the diegetic and non-diegetic, i.e., are these songs really happening in the world or are they happening inside Arthur's mind? We don't know always. The movie's not always super clear on that, but nonetheless, you get to hear Lady Gaga and perhaps less successfully Joaquin Phoenix tackling everything from the American Songbook to Burt Bacharach and Hal David, who I guess at this point are the American Songbook too. Yeah. And then the back half of the movie is pretty much a courtroom drama where Arthur faces goes on trial for his crimes from the first movie, which means people return from the first movie to give testimony and offer their POV about things, and the singing continues. And
does it ever?
Yeah, this is a movie that I think I had a much more interesting time talking about than seeing, because Christy and I did a very quick out of the theater reaction, and we were just like, this movie is leaden. Like it plods along. The pacing is terrible. It just kind of lurches around from idea to idea. And then in talking about it with other critics that we knew, there are some interesting ideas to sort of uncover here, but unfortunately the least interesting part about the movie is still the movie.
Yeah.
Todd Phillips is bringing some things to the table, but everything is presented either really obviously or really just thuddingly. This is an ordeal, this film, frankly.
Yeah.
And I love a musical. And it's a musical in quotes, I guess, because it's sort of using the idea of what musicals normally do, what musical numbers usually do, which is to either move the story along or fill in the blanks of character. And here the characters remain pretty resolutely blank. It's pretty late in the game before we really get a read on Lady Gaga's character and her intentions. And I still find this iteration of the Joker super not interesting. And I think that if you took Gotham City and Harvey Dent and Joker and all the sort of little Batman tidbits out of this, if Todd Phillips just wanted to make this movie about an unhinged clown man who goes on a killing spree, I don't think there would be nearly the interest in it. But because it ties into the larger sort of DC universe, it's considered this sort of bold, R-rated, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, I still don't think this is a an interestingly made movie, although as a sequel, it is interesting. And we'll unlock this. We'll unpack this later if we get into spoilers. But let me put it this way: if you thought The Hangover Part 3 was Todd Phillips's ultimate act of setting a franchise on fire, wait until you see Joker Folie à Deux.
Yeah, literally and metaphorically at times. Todd Phillips does not do himself any favors by invoking, again, like 70s New York City Scorsese, like Umbrellas of Cherbourg, Fred Astaire, dance. I mean, there's so much here that I guess is meant to be an homage to various kinds of influence on Arthur in the songs that may or may not be happening in his mind. I feel like the use of music is so distractingly erratic here, because at times it's clear that the songs are in his mind, but then we cross this threshold into which others can hear him singing, and these are actual numbers. Like the more elaborate ones, I think, are still in his mind, but there is some musical interaction with other people. And the back and forth of that I found distracting and found it ineffective as a device. Like, if we're using the songs as a manifestation of his disconnect with reality, that's great. Do that. That's Dancer in the Dark. Do that if you're going to do that. But the back and forth of that, I think, renders this as a musical being kind of inert.
Yeah, I was going to say, whether they're taking place in his mind or not, I don't think the movie has any larger vision of what they mean in terms of who this guy is, how he thinks of himself, how he sees himself in the world, if he's the hero of his own story, any of that kind of stuff. I think, there's the idea of it and there's the potential for it, but I don't think that Phillips ever quite, closes that loop in a way that feels dramatically satisfying, let alone musically satisfying.
Yeah, it is so repetitive and overbearing and heavy-handed and just dreary. I mean, there are times where it looks great. I want to say, from a production standpoint, from a craft standpoint, there are elements here that are worthwhile, like Lawrence Sherr's cinematography, the use of lighting in a variety of ways, whether it is the variety show that's Joker and Harley are doing, or there's a scene where he gets thrown into solitary and it's dark, but there's like a slash of light across his eyes from the slat in the door, and then that gets shut. Like, that's very dramatic. The use of spotlights is very dramatic. There's a fire at one point at Arkham, and he and Harley in the trailer are standing in the middle of them. There's like a duality to this image, because there's like the horror of the flames, but also the romantic nature of the projector casting a glow. So there's a lot of like evocative, emotional stuff going on here visually. And of course, like Ariane Phillips' costume design. She also did Joker. She's Tom Ford's costume designer. So, you're not messing around when you're choosing her. And like, that was effective as far as showing Harley's progression here. But the whole point of having Lady Gaga here, thank God she's there to sing, because she elevates all these numbers. But Harley as a character exists solely to prop up Joker. There's nothing to her. Like, she wouldn't pass her own Bechdel test. Right?
Yeah,
She talks about nothing but Joker.
I will say, I think she's a little more dimensional than some of the early comics portrayals or cartoon. This is actually a character who was born out of Batman the Animated Series and then became part of sort of DC Comics canon. And depending on who's writing her, she can be anything but like from sort of obsessed fangirl to somebody who, I think she's been allowed to sort of evolve over the years, where her relationship with Poison Ivy, for example, is much deeper than the one she has with Joker. And there are like, in Harley, the emancipation of Harley Quinn in Birds of Prey, we see her understanding that, this is a one-way relationship and Joker is only going to exploit me. And I will say that there's an attempt to do something with her here that is deeper than some of the less interesting Harley portrayals. But again, to what end, as Paulie Walnuts would ask? I'm not convinced by any of this, but we'll get into this in the spoiler talk. I think one could stand back from this and be like, I see they're going for this, and this, and they're trying to comment on that, and that. And all of that is, again, the least interesting thing about this movie is the movie, because in the execution, it's still this slog to sit through.
Yeah, especially once it becomes this courtroom drama, it just will not end, and it is so repetitive. And we are literally relitigating the events of the first Joker movie, which I guess if you love Joker, like, hooray, you get more of it. But I did not, and this does not necessarily recontextualize the first Joker in a way that is revelatory or gripping.
Yeah.
It's just, another excuse for Joaquin Phoenix to like preen around and show up in court in the makeup and do different voices. Also, smoking is not a personality. That's basically, there's not a whole lot else to him besides like the mania and the constant nicotine habit.
I will say there are some choices made by Todd Phillips that, again, I think he's kind of daring the people who were really into Joker to stay on board. And that I do find interesting. I just wish that the choices that he made to do that played better cinematically. I really like Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah, I always like Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah.
He's always good. It is a bold choice. If he's making the statement we think he's making, Todd Phillips, in response to the first Joker, that's intriguing and it is bold and it is daring. But yeah, I'm with you that I wish he pulled it off in a way that wasn't such a complete slog. Like this began late because all screenings in LA do. So I looked at my watch and it was like 6 o'clock. And I thought, there's another entire half an hour of this movie left. And like each time they kept bursting into a new song or even like inching their way, warbling into a new song. I'm like, another song, enough. And they're so on the nose. They're so on the nose.
They are.
And there's a moment that like, a dissonant kind of song choice that I audibly groaned because it's a thing that we don't like. But I will get into it with that more with you in a spoiler talk. We will have details for that for you very, very soon. But until then, like I'm going to say like a 3, like I kind of hated this, but the number I'm giving it is based solely on like the production values and Lady Gaga's singing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm about a 4, and again, I think I thought I was thinking a lot about Megalopolis in terms of I like what you're going for here. Right. I just wish this were working for me because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about the ideas in it, but I'm not thinking about it as a transformative or transporting or even just kind of visually fascinating work. I don't think either of these movies carries off their noble intentions, but at least they have intentions, which half the time I kind of feel like they get a participation trophy for that because so many movies are so sort of cynically product, and you certainly can't accuse either of these movies of that.
But if you're going to spend 2 hours and 20 minutes of your life on one or the other, I would see Megalopolis. Sure,
yes. If these are the choices.
You have to pick one. I would pick Megalopolis, not this. Anyway, let us know what you're going to see this weekend and stay tuned for a spoiler talk.